of emotions. How many different emotions can you identify? What is your guess? Believe it or not, there are 1,800 different emotions. Here's just a very small sample of emotions. Remember, stress occurs whenever you're out of homeostasis. So I'm hoping you're starting to see that stress is much more than just feeling anxious or overwhelmed. Those two emotions definitely bring you out of homeostasis, but there are a ton of additional emotions that also bring you out of homeostasis and therefore fall under the umbrella of the term stress. So we've talked about the power of thoughts and some cognitive restructuring techniques. Remember that thoughts determine emotions, so thoughts and emotions are very closely tied. Our ability to recognize our emotions is an important precursor to effectively managing stress. What do you think? Of all the stress-inducing emotions, which two are especially associated with the stress response? Anger, which is most correlated with the fight part of the fight or flight, and fear, which is most correlated with the flight part. Anger. So let's talk about anger. When we're angry, our blood vessels dilate, which can cause a red, flushed face because of the increased blood flow to our face. It's been said that anger is a condition in which the tongue works faster than the mind. It can be a very powerful emotion, and for some, it can be a very difficult emotion to control. So which is more detrimental to our health, anger or fear? Just like hostile aggression is the most dangerous characteristic of someone with a type A personality, anger is thought to be the most dangerous emotion. Of course, this is not to say you should never allow yourself to get angry, which is impossible anyway, but learning to control your anger and not be controlled by it is critical. Anger mismanagement. Let's talk about 4 anger mismanagement styles or ineffective ways that people deal with conflict or anger. Somatizers. Somatizers, as the name implies, soma means body, represent a passive behavior style that takes its toll on the body. Somatizers are people who don't overtly express their feelings of anger, but rather they suppress it for fear that to show anger will result in the rejection or loss of approval of those who cause the grievance. So this mismanagement style promotes the martyr role. When anger is suppressed, physical symptoms often results, such as migraine headaches, ulcers, colitis, and TMJ or locked jaw. Self-punisher. A self-punisher is a passive behavior style of mismanaged anger and refers to people who channel their anger into guilt. These people often get angry with themselves for getting angry with others. They punish themselves with control measures, which in effect lower their self-esteem. For example, these limits of control can be seen in food intake, overeating or starvation, or excessive drinking. Exploder. Exploders represent the stereotype of uncontrolled aggression. Exploders are people who express their anger in a hostile manner, either verbally or physically. Like a volcano, they erupt, spreading their hot lava in a path of destruction toward any person around them. Exploders pent up their feelings of anger and then often erupt at people or objects, which are not associated with the primary cause of frustration. Explosive behavior is sometimes displaced onto others, where feelings of anger are suppressed toward the provoker, but then released or projected onto innocent victims. In many cases, explosive anger is used as a form of intimidation to maintain control of a situation or other people's emotions. It is this behavior that is targeted by psychologists as indicative of type A personality and the factor most closely associated with coronary heart disease. Underhander. Like an exploder, an underhander exhibits an active style of mismanaged anger that inflicts mild abuse to individuals within one's proximity. What separates underhanded behavior from the explosive style is that underhanders usually target their aggression directly at the cause of the threat and what they perceive to be socially acceptable means. Underhanders seek revenge for injustices to their ego and try to sabotage their quote-unquote enemy with little acts of aggression in a somewhat socially acceptable way. Examples include walking in late for a staff meeting and sarcastic comments, both of which demonstrates a need to gain control of the aggressor. Underhanders see themselves as life's victims. And although their anger is often directed at the cause, resolution is rarely accomplished. Recommendations. So here are just a couple of recommendations for handling anger. Just like the coping techniques, these recommendations are very simple, but they can be very effective. Obviously, find whatever works best for you. Take deep breaths. We haven't talked about how powerful deep breathing is yet. That's in a later lecture, but trust me, there are both physiological and psychological benefits to taking a couple of deep breaths to calm yourself down. Remember, there's a two-way mind-body connection. If you can get your body to calm down, your mind follows suit. Explore what's really behind your anger. In order to get your needs met and express your anger in appropriate ways, you need to be in touch with what you are really feeling. Are you truly angry, or is your anger masking other feelings such as embarrassment, insecurity, hurt, shame, or vulnerability? If your knee-jerk response in many situations is anger, it is very likely that your temper is covering up your true feelings and needs. This is especially likely if you grew up in a family where expressing feelings was strongly discouraged. As an adult, you may have a hard time acknowledging feelings other than anger. Be aware of your triggers. Are you aware of your hot buttons? What are they? Can you easily identify what causes you to get angry or experience any of the other stressful emotions? Be aware of those hot buttons so that when they're being pushed, you can easily and quickly identify what you need to do to diffuse your anger. Remember, a stressor has the potential to elicit a stress response. Your triggers have the potential to elicit an anger reaction, which causes the stress response. They might always be your triggers, but they don't always have to elicit your anger. For example, rude people might be a trigger for you. Someone who uses offensive paralanguage and speaks in a condescending, aggressive, or rude manner might anger most people. But if that's especially a trigger for you, then being aware of when you encounter a rude person will allow you to take extra precaution to stay calm. The ultimate goal is not to be affected, because as soon as you get angry, you're giving the control and power to that person. But if you can get to the point where you actually smile at them and respond with something like, "Alrighty then, thanks so much for your help." Okay, maybe that's a little sarcastic, but at least you're not getting angry. Think before responding. When someone says or does something that triggers an anger reaction, our instinct is to immediately respond. Most of us can probably admit that we wished we would have responded differently, whether it be in person or via email or text, to someone who elicited anger. Get into the habit of catching yourself when you feel anger coming on. Take a couple of deep breaths and think before responding. Knee-jerk reactions when anger has been elicited are rarely appropriate or effective. Supplemental video. The supplemental video for this lecture is Anger Management Techniques and is just over 4 minutes. It's a well-cast video and provides a couple of good recommendations. The speaker for the well-cast videos is very animated, so some people usually like her and some people don't. Regardless, listen to what she has to say because she does provide some very good suggestions. Key points. There are 4 types of anger mismanagement styles: Somatizers, self-punishers, exploders, and underhanders. Some recommendations for controlling anger are take deep breaths, explore what's really behind your